1 Timothy chapter 3. Would you guys turn there?
I was going here. And then I was over there.
She says she's 2 minutes out. She'll be here in 2 minutes. So that'll give us time to read the passage. And then chapter 3, just verses 14 and 15. It says, "These things I write to you, though I hope to come to you shortly. But if I am delayed, I write so that you may know how you ought to conduct yourself in the house of God, which is the church of the living God, the pillar and ground of the truth." So I'm just going to pause there, just pray for this session. Lord, thank you so much for our ministries, Lord. Those you put in our care, these younglings, these sheep, Lord, these beautiful children that are precious in your eyes, God, that we have an opportunity to pour into and be a light to, God, and to shepherd. Lord, I pray you would give our ministries wisdom. God, you would provide the skills, the leadership qualities, and Lord, the people that need to be in these areas, Lord, for us to be effective in the things that we do. And I know you're so good to do that. And so I just pray you'd be here today. God, you'd be the center of our discussion, and that you just bless the time. And we ask this in your name. Amen. I'll introduce myself first. My name is Zach Lamberson. I was sharing with a brother here. I was on staff here at Tri-Cities for almost 20 years. And God called my wife and I to pastor a church in McMinnville. I pastor the church. My wife's just coming. But she is now on staff. If you don't know, she's been the one running this conference. And so she still works for Pastor Steve running conferences and stuff. And so she probably has a lot more input to this class than I do. And she did promise she would be here momentarily. But I want to kind of emphasize this as a workshop. And by that, what I mean is, like, this isn't a formal teaching. As much as you can interject, if you have a comment, like, hey, we did it this way and it worked this way, or if you have a question, please don't hesitate. I don't know if it's just my intimidating personality, but I feel like sometimes no one says anything when I'm teaching, and I just like leave it at that. But please, if you have something to add to the discussion, I would love to hear it. You know, I don't have, you know, my wife and I did middle school ministry for 12 years, and it overlapped with our young adult ministry that we did about the same amount of time. Maybe it was 10 and 12, I can't remember, but we did, you know, and every year that we were a part of those ministries, we did camps, we did winter camps, we did mission trips in the summer, and so young adults, I don't say particular that I've like ran a high school camp, but I imagine these principles will apply if it's somewhere in between. I've not run a kids ministry camp, but I imagine these same principles will apply too. And so I have, just for you guys who are taking notes, 5 things. So 5 things, just write 1 through 5. And then we'll kind of just flesh these out. Like I said, I would love to input. My wife, like she said, she supported me in all these camps. She actually gave me a lot of the ideas for the writing. We haven't even talked about this class, so I don't know what's going to happen. But she gave me a lot of the ideas, the inspiration. She's been my source of inspiration for this class. So she does everything like to the hilt. Wants to do it really well, and I think that's been a big part of it. The reason I read from 1 Timothy is, you know, that's in the context of the church, right? Paul's writing to a young minister, and he's telling him this is how church should go. And one of the things he says is that you may know how you ought to conduct yourself in the house of God. And I think, like, as far as planning something like a retreat, for those of you guys who have attended or gone on one, for me, like, I remember, like, the first time I really started making my faith real, I was in high school, and we went to a camp in Whistler, Canada with all the Calvary chapels, which was really neat for me. It's the only time we ever did this. But we met all these, Brett Williams was there leading worship. If you guys know, Craig Finley, you know, old school Calvary guys, they're leading worship of this thing. And I just remember being so encouraged, and to go away for a weekend, you guys know this, but like to disconnect from the world, to disconnect from your devices and from just anything, to set apart for the Lord. like God just so blesses it. And it's just like, I'm always like blown away how fruitful those times have been in my ministry, taking young adults or taking kids or, whatever context to these things and going like this, let's seek the Lord together and like how God moves in those areas. And I think it has to do, honestly, with just how intentional you are in a camp. Like you go away and you're seeking the Lord and like God's there. He shows up and he's powerful in your prayer times. He's powerful in your worship times and the messages. And I just always remember walking away. It was probably the most exhausting things we've ever done. I can remember when we were, young and married, we would go to these camps and you'd come home and you felt like you just had a week-long binge, like where you just were off the, I don't know what happened. You came home and your head hurts and you're just wiped out. Like you had to sleep for 3 days to recover from some of these things that we did. But it was always such an epic thing. And so I would say, just before we do anything, before we get into anything, the first thing I would say for you guys, this is point one, is to bow before the battle. Whatever you're going to do, but long before the camp is being planned, long before you're bringing people on board, long before you're outlining the speaker and the events, like spend some time in prayer and ask the Lord, what do you want this to be? And then maintain that atmosphere of seeking throughout that process. As you begin to gather your team, as you begin to get clarity on the vision of the camp, like what the theme is going to be or any of those kind of things, like begin to really seek the Lord intentionally. We've done different things with our teams, whether it's, we had a day of fasting with our team or, one year we did a week with just our worship team for a middle school camp. Our worship team all fasted for a week, which was like pretty, I was young in ministry. That was a long time to fast. And yeah, we found it to be so fruitful. By the end of the week, we're together as a team. We've been texting. I don't think we had text messaging back then. That's how old I am. I'm from the 1900s, okay? And so we were like communicating all week long. We were praying for each other. End of the week, we got together and just prayed for that camp, prayed for that event, because again, I see the impact it could have on these kids. My wife and I, because we've done ministry long enough, we have, kids who are in middle school that became young adults who are now adults and have kids, and now their kids are almost reaching that age of being in youth, which is kind of scary. But, we had these kids reach out to us. Even, I'll give you just one example. Right before we left, we moved to McMinnville about 2.5 years ago to take the church there. And my wife had a gal reach out to her. I don't know if it was through Facebook or Instagram, something like that, but reached out to her and said, hey, you don't know me, or you probably don't remember me, but I remember you. And she says, I came with a friend to your guys' an event that we had. It wasn't a camp, but it was an event. I came to this event, and she's going through something hard. She's got a child, the dad's out of the picture, and she's just struggling. And she goes, I just remember you guys were like the real deal. And the event we had, of all things, we had a Nacho Libre night where we watched Nacho Libre. And I'm not kidding. And this is what we did. We had a giant trough of nachos that we made, which I don't think is COVID friendly. We wouldn't do it anymore, but maybe we would. No, we would. But just chips down the middle of the table, dumped cheese, dumped sour cream, and everyone just ate off that thing. I think we did with the ice cream too, right? We just ice cream sundae bar after we moved the nachos off first, but and that's what she told us.
We also gave a devotion, so we always we always shared the gospel. Like we never just had events; it was always the gospel.
But that thing stuck in her mind of the sincerity of our faith and love. And to the point where, again, this is probably 10 years after the fact, maybe longer, and she's reaching out to my wife going, I'm a friend of a friend. I only came to church a couple times, but I know you guys are real. My wife met with her, got to pray for her, got to plug her into the church, right? It was right as we were leaving, so we're like, oh no. But, I mean, just that kind of impact you don't realize you're having. And that's why I say this is a spiritual battle, to make sure you're mindful of that. Pray with your team. Pray with your church, get your church behind it. If a camp's coming up, we'll tell our church, hey, we have a prayer chain, but we'll be like, hey, the youth is going on this. In fact, every day we have a summer bike trip for our church. So in the summer, our youth go, and this has been a long-standing tradition. I think it's been over almost 30 years that our church has done this. So not just our youth pastor. He's only been there 10 years. He actually went on it when he was in high school at the church. But they do a bike trip through the San Juan Islands. And we're not that close. I mean, we're further than Tri-Cities is from the San Juans. But they'll drive 9 hours to get to the San Juans, and then they just take the first day to a campground, get on a ferry the next day, and then stay for a few days and kind of just bike around. And it's just really incredible. You know, we joined them last summer just for a part of it, but you can see the impact it's made on, you know, generations. Like all of our kids talk about the bike trip. It's coming up. They're getting excited. But every day of the bike trip, our church is praying for a different part of it. Hey, they're there today, and we should be praying for them. This is what they're going to be doing. This is the day they had the long ride. They're going to be riding. And granted, like the longest I think they ride in a day is like 15 miles. It's really not that far. But for a middle school kid who doesn't ride bikes and is out of shape, it's like the most daunting task they've ever done. And so, you know, they're like praying for energy, praying for connection. And so our church every day is praying with that group, praying for that group. And then I would say this, you know, just kind of like my wife and I are probably our biggest learning curve for us early in ministry was to recognize the spiritual nature of these things. That, you know, when a camp was coming, usually almost the day of the camp, the day it's starting, is how much tension there was between us personally. And like we would start fighting about things that just didn't matter at all. Feelings would be hurt. We would be going back, you know, what is happening? And it took us probably a few years to finally realize, okay, this is an attack from the enemy. He's trying to distract us. And so you guys will know, like, the greater thing that you're going to do for the Lord, the greater the enemy is going to come against you. And so just in anything you're planning, whatever kind of retreat or camp or just a day thing, whatever it is, like just know, like if it's going to be impactful, which again, we're always faithful to share the gospel. I'll share more about that. But like whatever it's going to be, like just know the enemy's going to be against you. He's going to try to cause dissension in your team. He's going to try to cause dissension in your personal life with your spouse, if you're married, or with your kids. It's like anything that can go wrong will go wrong at this time. Physical health issues, all that kind of stuff. And I want to say this, be encouraged by it. It sounds funny, but like you're going to be mad and frustrated and kind of like, why? But be encouraged because you know you're going in the right direction. You know, Steve, my pastor, he always, I didn't play football. He always gives these football analogies. Okay, I played football. I was in middle school. I played football. I was on the special teams. And so that's where they put the special players. But he always talks about the analogy of like, the guy who's got the ball, those blockers are trying to keep you from him and they're pushing you against it. I think that's a great analogy. Like if you're going towards the goal, you're doing the thing you're supposed to, you're going to get a lot of pushback. And so they're going to try to, the enemies especially going to try to keep you from doing this great thing before the Lord. And really our weapons are spiritual. Our weapons are not something that, again, you can fight back with tangibly with your fist or a sword. So what do? We have to bow. We have to pray. We have to seek the Lord. We have worship nights. We would have these kind of gatherings. We get our team together. Let's just pray for this camp. I feel like the enemy's coming. He's trying to attack us. Let's just pray for open doors, because it seems like anything that can go wrong does go wrong, doesn't it? I mean, the enemy is just so good at putting ghosts in the machines, or the brakes go out in the bus, or whatever it is. We had one year we were actually at camp, and this is probably like the third or fourth camp we were doing at this facility, and all of our kids started throwing up on Saturday night. Like I wouldn't say half the kids in the camp were throwing up, and it was like the night before they had eaten pizza and like bright red lemonade or sugar drink, whatever it was. And so no, it wasn't out the drop. This was no, that was blessed by the Lord. But these kids were puking their guts out, and like we're just trying to at that point, just how do we even get them home? Like this is nuts. And so like it was crazy, but we eventually, you get to see the enemy at work, but God blessed it. We had a bag on the way home that we just passed around up and down the bus. Everyone's just puking to that bag. We got them home. The Lord was good.
The kids remember it, and they loved it.
We loved it.
You need that trough.
We need that. That would have been good. So bow before the battle. That's what I say. The spiritual aspect of things. the second point I would have is you cannot over communicate. You cannot over communicate. So you're going to communicate to your team. You're going to communicate obviously to the parents, to your kids. My wife was really great. We never relied upon announcements for us to get people to come to camps. Anything really.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I would just encourage you guys for middle school or young adult, it doesn't matter, or high school. I find people in church rely so much upon Facebook posts and the church Sunday morning announcements or your church newsletter. That's all nonsense to me. Like, I think church is about discipleship. It's about the one. It's about looking somebody in the eye. And so whenever we had a camp coming, whatever my job was on Sunday morning, I would say, I'm not going to be here for 10 minutes. And when church is starting, I would just walk through the sanctuary. Didn't matter if we were in the youth room the whole time. I'd be having my stack of invites, and I would walk through the sanctuary, and I'd find every parent and every child that I knew that had a middle schooler or a high schooler or whatever, and I would literally look them in the eye like, are you coming? And they'd be like, no. And then I wouldn't stop there. But why not? Like, I want to challenge you to pray and ask God, would he have you come? And I'm saying this to the 11-year-old girl in her face, like, because I'm not willing to just like let Satan say don't come, or I'm anxious, or I don't have the money. And she'd be like, well, I've never gone anything like that. Okay, but have you prayed? No. Okay, I just want you to go pray. And then they'd be like, well, I don't have the money. If you don't have the money, that's fine. Go pray. If God says you're going, then I will help you go. I will help you go. I will work my butt off if you work with me. Zach and I would do anything for any child that wants to go as long as they worked with us. And I would find the parent and I would say, hey, is your kid coming? And they'd be like, oh, every parent, always. Oh, I didn't know that was coming up. Oh, is that now? And I'd be like, listen, I just want to encourage you. Everything that you're struggling where your kids don't, you want them to love God, if you could just send them away. This is discipleship camp. And we called it discipleship camp. And that is the main key. It is discipleship. This is not fun camp. This is not activity camp. This is not where we have themed camps. This is discipleship camp. And I would tell
we
you,
did have themes. But
you're going to make it the most fun and done with the most amount of excellence. But the goal of it is, if you want your kids to see the need for Jesus, I promise you I'm going to explain it to them there. And I would just tell the parent, and then they would say, okay, I'll pray about it. And then every week the kid would come back and be like, I'm going to go. And even though, we would just walk up to kids and say, are you coming? I haven't thought about it. I'd say, you should come. And they would say, okay. And you're just shocked. So just don't ever rely on the church announcements. And then that week I would do it. Then the next week I would hand the pack of invites to the next youth leader, probably a male this time. And I'd say, go get it. And just walk through the sanctuary. And I just pray as I'm walking up and down. I'm just praying. And seriously, guys, God will totally encourage those kids to come. And any of the girls that are in here that were my junior hires, I can see a few, they'll know that I never gave up. If they weren't coming, I'd be like, but seriously? It's a horrible reason. I don't care if you're anxious. Suck it up. Do it afraid.
They're called excuses for a reason,
they're all
right?
Afraid. They're all afraid. Just do it afraid. And I would say it to them, and they'd be like, okay, I trust you. I'll go. So, and then I would tell the parents exactly what to expect. And that was always helpful, because parents don't trust us. They don't trust the fact that their kids are going to get molested at camp. And so I would tell every parent, I'd say, do your kids get to come to camp? And they'd say, well, we're thinking about it. And I would say, I want you to know right now, we will never, ever have them alone with any child or any adult. There will always be 2 adults present in their space at all times. Never, ever. No unstructured free time ever. And I would say, I will watch your kids. There will be nothing of this. There will be none of this. And I would just go through, what are your safety protocols? No grown adult man will be having a private conversation with your young daughter. I promise. None of it. And they, all right. And they would say, I would say, you want to come? If they were allowed to come, because I trust them. And then I would even bring the parents as the helpers. But parents don't want to send their kids in this day and age. So I just remove every obstacle. If whatever obstacle they gave me, I'm, all right, let's do it.
Yeah, and again, if you're relying upon announcements on Sunday morning or in the bulletin, or even like my wife said, Facebooking, it's like that kind of stuff. It's not personal, right? Discipleship's personal. And that's going to be the thing that, even now we've learned, I'm over our men's ministry. She's over the women's ministry. Guys are not going to respond to just a blanket, hey, come to this event. But if you go and invite them, it's crazy. You one-on-one, look them in the eye. Are you coming? Well, and they kind of vacillate. And if they have a real excuse, they have an excuse. But a lot of times they just need that encouragement, that shove. And so, again, parents, don't rely upon just, that kind of messaging. But also, as you communicate as the camp approaches, having like a parent meeting could be a good idea. We've done those in the past where, again, addressing some of these questions, even if it's not like this is what we're going to do, but like just to get parents a feel of like this is what our plan is for the camp. So not what I'm saying is you're not just addressing those who are already signed up. You're just giving parents, this is an informational meeting. They were going to have this event. If you want to know what it's about, again, I think parents who have those kind of concerns are going to be the ones that show up and they'll ask questions, and then you can communicate. So you can't over communicate in regards to these things, because I think the more you can be personal about it, the better it's going to be. Number 3 is this: have clear expectations. Clear expectations are actually put standards as well, and this is something I would say this probably more learned from my wife than I would have anticipated doing ministry, especially the younger the kids are. The need to have boundaries, the need to set expectations and let them know what those are in advance. We would always, we would always like send out emails to the kids of what to bring, what to expect. We'd send it to the parents, but that doesn't always register. And we're talking to the kids beforehand, whether they're coming to youth group or what, young adults, whatever it is. We're giving them an idea of what's happening. But ultimately, the first thing we do is when we're getting together, and this changed depending on what kind of camp. If it was middle school, we would all get together and ride together, right? Young adults all show up. But the first thing we're doing is kind of setting the expectation. And so for our middle school, it wasn't like, hey, get on the bus, we'll see you there. It's like we're going to get together and we're going to talk about, what they can expect this weekend. As far as, I would say, the atmosphere of the weekend, what they can expect if they are willing to lean into it. Like, here, if you do this, God is going to meet you. It's going to be an awesome time. You can do as much as you want. And I would always say stuff like that. You can do as much or as little as you want, but if you will lean into this, God will bless it. He will meet you right where you're at. And so giving clear expectations of standards as well. If you just go into the camp and your mentality is, what we call free range parenting, just let the kids, little niños, and go do what they want and just kind of roam free. That's probably not going to go well, especially if they're younger, especially if they're kids. Like to have that kind of mentality is not going to do well. And that's one of my points, so I won't take too much of it, but. The expectation. I always had 2 rules, and you can adopt these. You can steal them from me if you like. They're actually just the 2 greatest commandments, right? Love God and love others. But I realize I can't make a kid love God and love others, so my rule is respect God and respect others. And what I would tell the kids is, hey, you may not be here because you love Jesus. You may not be here because you want to learn more about him, but you're not going to stop another kid from doing that. And you give them that expectation. We do that for our youth group on our meetings in the middle of the week. Just kind of changing the culture of youth group and going, hey, we're here to seek the Lord and worship together. Because if you don't, the kids will sit there and talk and text, and they'll just be disruptive. But if you're like very intentional about, hey, our expectation is we're going to seek the Lord and we're going to worship, and you don't have to do that. Like, you don't have to be here, and you don't have to be a part of this. And then they kind of get on board, and again, they'll rise to the standard that you set. If you don't have any standards, if there's no like, hey, this is what we're about, this is the direction we're going, they'll go wherever they want, and they'll do whatever they want. And it will just end up being a train wreck in a lot of ways, and you're going to get a lot of parents upset at you if you're doing youth camps. You're going to get phone calls. We've gotten those. We've not done anything perfect. Some of this is responsive, and the things we did wrong, the ways we blew things up, and we're like, oh, that was a mistake. We find out. She mentioned like no man will be having a conversation with your daughter. That happened to us one time. We found out, and the mom's like, yeah, one of our youth leaders. He was kind of a knucklehead, but he's had this really deep conversation in the back of like a van on the way home from camp with a girl. Like, what are you doing?
He asked her what God was showing her, and she went in, and it was like.
And we're like, oh
so
man, we have to write this rule down now because of you, and like that. And that's what it is, expectation, right? We have expectations of our leadership. Again, they all know you're never to be alone with a kid. They all know. Again, it changes as they get older. Young adults is a different animal when we do young adult ministry, but there were still expectations. I mean, we would have camps, and you'd have a lot of kids that just like have never shown up before, and now it's like party, and they're going to come. And so, just if your group has that expectation, if we're seeking the Lord, it's like it reverberates. It's pretty impactful. And so, having clear expectations, again, from the get-go, right out the gate, and then maintaining those. Right, that's a huge thing. Is a lot of times we'll say, "Well, we're not going to do this or this." One of the expectations we had, and this was middle school, is we called it no purple, right? And we'd have one of the middle schoolers come up and explain it, like boys are blue and girls are pink, and then they would explain how if you mix those two colors, you get purple. And so we're just explaining like you're not going to be off by yourself with a boy or a girl, right? And you would have that standard, and then if we saw that. I would tell our leadership, I would equip them that they are allowed to go and disrupt that. And with the authority of, hey, our standard is no purple. And whatever the standard is, you equip your leadership so they are on the same page, and then give them the ability to, do that, execute your commands. Execute your vision is what I meant to say. Yeah, whatever it takes.
With that, one of the things, the way it always worked for us was, it's really hard to communicate to parents. So we would always say at drop-off, so drop-off was at 3 o'clock after school or whatever, we'd ask the parents to stick around. So we check them in, everyone's in the youth room or the sanctuary, and we're all going to pray is how we say. We'd love to pray together. Well, before we pray together, we say to the kids, here's our expectations, absolutely no phones. Absolutely none of this. Absolutely. And we just go through and say, and if any of these things happen, all your parents are here and they heard it, and they know, because they've already signed the waiver, they're willing to pick you up at camp tonight if it doesn't go well. Like, nobody is staying because I'm not going to be responsible for any child having sex at our camps. Like, it's just never going to happen. So kids that want to run off on their own, kids that want to disappear, it's just not allowed.
You will go home.
But it's not a matter of, I just want to be mean to this kid. It's, I will never, ever allow a child to have an experience under my authority. And then, so we had a standard, we tell them the standard, we tell the parents the standard, and then we would say to the junior hires and the high schoolers, there's always like, all right guys, if you cannot respect during Bible study, if you can't respect others, you'll be doing dishes tonight. And we just kind of would make it funny. We weren't hard and angry. We just this is the expectation, this is the downfall. And those kids would be in the kitchen doing dishes. They really would. And we would say, all right, dude, you done doing dishes? You want to listen and obey, or do you want to go back? Because kids will fight you. I mean, they will come at you. They will just decide they're going to control. And so we always learned very early on, they never get to win. Because they will rule your camp.
This applies to parenting as well. I don't know if you guys know this.
In parenting, if you choose to be a lazy parent, then you get the consequences of that. And that I get. But when it's somebody else's child, I don't get to choose to let their kids. I don't get to choose to have lax boundaries on someone else's child. We have always had the highest standard for someone else's kid, because if a parent is offended that I let their kid watch a phone or have a conversation or we show a movie, they're never coming back. And they're mad at church, and everybody has church hurt, and everybody. And so I realize I'm supposed to never allow a child to be stumbled, ever. So we have our standards, we stick to our standards, and then we always have an enforcer, because there's different personalities. Not everybody is good at telling a child they're in trouble. Some people are really bad at it, and it makes them nervous, and they don't know how to do it. Whereas then you have people with that kind of gift that's like, hey, buddy, knock it off. Just sit down, And so if you have leaders that are better at that, give them that ability, And we would even tell the girls the standard of their dress. And then we would always tell the lady who's going to be over that. Little girls are, because they will bring outfits that they would never wear at home to camp because their parents aren't there. So we would just say, this is the reality. We are not going to show up to camp and be wearing inappropriate outfits. It was just really simple to say, because then when they didn't listen, we were able to say, hey, hon, remember we talked about this? Oh, yeah, okay. Because if you say it, they understood it, right? And so we had a standard, and then we always followed through with the discipline. But then the other hard part was we had a standard of the leaders. And so that's the only caution we would say. Don't pair up with churches that you're not like-minded with. Don't send them to Young Life camps if you're not on board for Young Life. And so we went to Young Life camp, and we brought all our middle schoolers, and I look over, and one of the boy leaders is dropping stuff on the ground to have the workers bend over to grab it for his boys. And that was the last year we went to camp. With them, we started doing our own camp, because your kids will be influenced by everybody at the camp. So I just challenge you guys, standards for the kids, standard for the adults, and standard for every single person you allow to be present. And so that was huge for us. So now it's I'd rather have a camp of 20 than a camp of 200 if it's pure and the kids can hear God's voice.
Yeah.
Right? And so that standard I would just make sure is the Word of God.
Well, that leads to number 4. Praise, preach, and play hard. You know, praise, that's my favorite worship sets ever were actually with middle schoolers on mission trips. We would do a mission trip to Spokane because that place needs Jesus so bad. And we would just go there and we would do homeless ministry. We would like do, different various service projects. We'd go visit elderly, all kinds of different stuff that we were partnering with other churches to do. But we would get back and our kids would worship like incredible because their hearts were just in the right place. And again, you have a kid, even if they're nervous, they're scared, this is the progression of I saw in a camp, like the first day, everyone's kind of timid, and by the end of the second day, they're worshiping, their hands raised, and they're just praising like this is going to be awesome. And having that expectation, like, you guys, we're going to meet the Lord here. He's going to show up. You guys have all experienced this, right? And I borrowed this from a church in Lebanon. This is in Calvary Chapel down there, but my wife's also adding pray hard.
Yeah, pray hard.
Pray hard. That would be
hard,
beforehand.
hard, yeah.
So pray hard would be the battle before the battle. Praise hard. Preach hard. And that means don't ever water down the word. I taught Bible studies to middle schoolers for 10 years, and it was always verse by verse. It was always convicting. I had always kids growing and responding and learning. And so don't, like Steve said, don't make sermonettes. Even though kids, their attention spans are shorter, you need maybe be more energetic. You need to be more, on their level, but don't water down the word. Preach the word, and then make the camp the most fun. Play hard. I mean, that was the thing. I think of, one of the stories I always think about is, when Jesus is teaching in the house, and there's a man on a bed, and his friends want to take this, to him, Jesus, and it's in Mark chapter 2. They can't get him. So what do? They tear down the roof, right? They're like, we'll do whatever it takes to get that guy to Jesus, because that's where that guy is going to get healed. And that was their heart mentality. And I always think of that in context of ministry, like, what is it going to take to get this person to Jesus? And so, we would do the most incredible outside the box thinking, just fun things, young adults, youth, whatever it was, to make it something where people wanted to be there. And then when they were there, like, again, Nacho Libre Trough night, like, they remember it for the rest of their life. They're not gonna forget that. And we did dumb things, we did, fun things, just crazy things. Lots of competition. One year we did a thing where we woke all the kids up. Our theme was Soldier On for the weekend, but we woke all the kids up at like 6 a.m. With blowhorns. And we had a buddy of mine who actually, ironically, wasn't in the military at the time, but went into the military, but came out and was dressed in the full army garb and got everyone doing push-ups and jumping jacks outside at it's a winter camp, okay? And the kids are freezing. They're in the pajamas. The girls are all whining and complaining, but they had so much fun. It set the tone for the whole weekend, and just that kind of mentality, let's go have fun, let's play hard. Being again out of the box thinkers. One year we did. I don't know where I came up with this, but we had just an end of the school year event down here. It was actually in the junior high room. I don't know if it's that anymore, but it was downstairs over here. And we had this event where we were just doing games, and we did a worship and Bible study. And then at the end of the night, I don't know where I came up with this vision, but I was like, we should do this thing where we have all these black lights on, and we shut the lights off, but they don't know there's black lights there. We just shut the lights off, and then we pelt kids with marshmallows.
Huge marshmallows in thousands.
I mean, we got those big campfire ones, and we found out you have to let them sit out for a little bit to dry a little bit, otherwise they're too sticky. But that's just a pro tip. And then at the end of the night, I had all my leaders were in. We had these buckets of marshmallows, and the kids were like, we're going to do one more event, and kind of downplaying it. And then the lights went off. I cranked music up where you couldn't hear or see. You're disoriented. And we did this in the ranch too, but we did it at this church first. And then we just started chucking marshmallows. And it was glow in the dark, flying through the room. Everyone's like, what is happening right now? And I don't think I've ever had more fun in my entire life than that marshmallow fight was the highlight of my existence. It was so much fun.
What Zach started with was the excellence. I think that's the part I would nail on. When we would start a retreat planning, you'd sit and pray, and you'd find your people to plan with. Who do you want to be involved? And then we would always build the retreat based upon worship and Bible study. So always started with that. Like we'd fill in huge areas where there's worship, Bible study, worship. I mean, never skimp on that. But then those breaks, we would pray over it. It has to be with excellence. It wasn't just like, let the kids run around for 4 hours. Because the kids that are godly, interacting with the kids that are ungodly for 4 hours, what happens is you just have a bunch of kids cussing at each other, and a bunch of kids being jerks to each other, a bunch of kids bullying each other, a bunch of kids being mean to each other. It's not like there's like 4 hours of kids just running around delighting in each other. Kids are foolish, the Bible says, and they're selfish, and so are we. And so to give them 4 hours of just free range, it just, the soft kids are going to hate it. The kids that dominate in bad behavior will dominate, and we all see that, right? And so we never allowed that, but so we take that 4 hours after there's the Bible studies in place, and then we would pray over excellence. What can we do that is complete excellence in this time? What can we do that's over the top, that will leave an impression in their mind, that will be so exciting that like YouTube cannot top it? You know, they want to be off screens for this. And so whether we did Survivor or our bombardment for marshmallows or our middle of the morning aerobics or, you know, huge bonfires or, you know,
we did dance parties for young adults. I mean, just
young adult dance parties at New Year's was the hype. Like it was so cool.
We had photo booths.
But
and we had all the
pure. Everything is so pure. Nothing crosses the line. There's not one song that's not rockin' Christian, and like there's not one
or
outfit.
just appropriate. I think we probably did like YMCA and
we
stuff,
did fun
right?
things, but it was never the world's music, right? Like
yeah.
But we always did it with like, what could we do? How could we like go all out in this crazy event? You know, Lebanon just sent us a picture of the new foam machine. It's like a bubble machine, and it just blows all this white bubbles. It would fill this room of bubbles, and the kids would run in it and play. And I was like, that's what we would have done, you know?
Play hard.
But we would have done something that was just extreme. So the kids, when they leave, they're just like dumbfounded. Like Christianity can be so fun. And like, I don't know if you guys came out of the world, but I remember when I got saved and like I wasn't drinking and partying on the weekend anymore. I went and hung out with believers, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so fun. Like you find some people that can actually be fun. It's so enjoyable. But in their mind, Christianity is lame and it's meek and it's like wimpy and there's no fun and no sin. So make it the hype. I mean, turn it up loud. Make them dance. Make them scream. Get the leaders. If your leaders are sitting in the back of the room while there's worship and Bible study, you're doing it wrong. Get the leaders, seriously, next to every child and get those leaders pumping and dancing and excited. Leaders are all in. We've never, I mean, when I go to youth group and I see the leaders sitting in the back, I'm like, man, they are just missing the biggest opportunity to disciple that child. To come and sit next to a child, to sit and take notes with them, to pray with them, to dance with them. I mean, I danced with a lot of these little girls in this room, and it was impactful. Yeah. You know, when we go to our cabins, it wasn't like sit down and be quiet. It was the first night, you go to bed tonight early, tomorrow you can stay up as late as you want. And
that was always that's a pro tip too. First night, tell them we have to go to bed, but the second night, you guys could stay up all night long. By the end of the second night, they're exhausted. They're all asleep before you put the lights on.
Cabin, and I would have bags full of like delicious food and fun things, and I am all in with these girls, and I'm up all night. And it's not you go to your cabin and the two leaders sit on a bed and have a 2-hour conversation while the kids interact. Like, teach your leaders to disciple. Like, I don't think I engaged with any adult while I was there. I engaged with 11-year-olds. Like, they were my best friends. They still are. Like, I love these girls. And so, I just challenge you, like, do it with excellence. I brought every girl a name tag. I brought every girl a gift. I brought every girl a handwritten card. Every girl got a prayer that I had prayed for them. Every girl knew that I was rooting for them all weekend. It wasn't just like, go do your thing. And I'll
every guy got a Mountain Dew and a Kit Kat bar.
Yeah. But really, truly, if you need ideas, though, you know, we're not telling you to make your camp the camp of games, but make your camp the camp of hype. That these kids see the joy. Jesus would have been the most fun ever. He would have preached the word, and then he would have brought excitement to these kids' lives. And I think that's what Zach and I have always done. We set the bar so high for fun. And young adults, too. Young adults want to have fun. Those guys, we'd have dance parties, and we would dance. You know, midnight would hit, and we would just be dancing. It was rocking. And then the middle schoolers, I'd also say, we almost always did cabin time. And if you guys don't know what cabin time is, we'd always do worship, Bible study, cabin time, and then fun. Cabin time right after Bible study is where you go to your cabin with your 8 girls. You sit on the floor, always on the floor, never on beds. You get within eye level. Like, I need to see everyone's eyes. 2 leaders there, and you have like 3 questions that the speaker had come up with. And it's never questions about like, you know, when you say, what can I pray for? And they always want to pray for their friend's friend. I don't care about their friend's friend. I care about them. So it's a very personal, today for you. What is God doing for you? And the first cabin time, if you try this, you're going to be like, Christy was wrong. That sucks. You're right. The first cabin time always sucks because they don't know what's going on yet and they don't care. The second cabin time, you're like, oh man, they super opened up. The third cabin time, you're like, man, those kids were real. It was legit. And so you let them all share the questions or whatever, and then pray over each other. And as a leader, don't pray first. Don't lead it. Let them lead it. Let one of the little girls that rose to the standard and say, will you pray for her? And will you pray for her? And by the end of it, these kids will seriously be discipling and praying. And then they're going to share things. They're going to share their porn struggles. They're going to share their sexual struggles. They're, and you always have to stop that line if it gets further enough to where any child in the room is going to learn anything. So that's the only encouragement I'd say. I'm never going to let an 11-year-old learn about something sexual from another 11-year-old's cabin time. So I always say, like, hey guys, I want to have a real conversation, but I want to respect just the purity of minds in this room that maybe don't know things. So if you have, because they could say crazy things. And a girl would start a conversation, it would cross that line, I'd say, you know what, I'm going to talk to you right after. You and me, we'll do this. And then I would grab another leader and sit and chat with that girl. If it was something of sexual abuse or something along. Because I don't want it to become this thing where everyone's going to match each other's trauma and have these crazy, gross conversations. It needs to be real. And so we would do it, and you guys, if you can get that kind of unity in your little cabin where they're really praying for each other, the way the camp feels during that excellent portion when they're playing, they're dancing together in the spirit of Jesus. This isn't hype time. This is seriously like the Lord enters in, and we would watch it. Like, it would just be the Lord had taken over our joy. And so there's just a different element. And the only other thing I would say about the whole standard thing, we see people want to invite all of the non-Christian kids to our camps. And praise God, let them all come. But if you let them lead your camp, if you let them run the standard, they get to choose. And we had someone recently say to us, well, I don't want to tell them to stop doing this because I don't want them to not come back. I don't want to take away their phones because I don't want them not to come back. I don't want to, and you know what? I think it's a very, I don't know how to say things nice. I'm just so like, I think it's a very self-focused thing to say stuff like that, because if the Holy Spirit brought them, the Holy Spirit will keep them. And so we hold our standard to the Word of God, and if they don't like it, then you pray, Holy Spirit, keep that kid here. Because I stayed. I was that kid, and I stayed, and so I don't think if you raise the standard, kids will leave. I think you raise the standard and kids will come.
They'll rise to it.
And we had 100 kids in our middle school here, and there wasn't 100 kids in the street. I felt like, I don't even know where they came from. But they came because we were like, no nonsense. You sit quietly, you listen to the word, but then afterwards, we'll go nuts, right? And so I just encourage you guys, kids thrive in standards and in purity. And
that's, she touched on a couple of different things. I don't think she read my outline, but number 5 is the younger you go, the more structure you need.
Yeah.
So, if you've got a kids camp, that's going to look drastically different than a young adult camp. They don't have free time, right? Our kids' camps that they do here at the church, they do stations. Their free time is their whole group is going from thing to thing. There's activities, but they're not just like let loose into the free, to the wild. And I say the same, middle school, high school. If you can separate them, if you can do that, man, get those kids away from each other.
Boys and girls. Is that what you mean?
No, middle school and high school.
Oh, those guys, yeah.
Like, don't mix those two. If you can, at all possible, keep them apart just because they're in different planes. They're going through different things. I know some of us can't, but as much as you can, even in the camp, whether it's like you have a small church, so it's maybe 12 kids that are going, and it's a mixture of high school and middle school, split them off in the cabin, middle school and high school. Do the activities. The middle schoolers, you're going to be way more attentive to what they're doing and going along with them and making sure they're staying together. High school has a little more freedom. When we got to young adult, it was kind of fun for us because we had been for years rigid with making sure we're the kids, we're parenting all these kids, and then young adults are like, go free. That's free range, right? These are adults that are making decisions. If they're at church, it's because they're choosing to be, so most of the time it was not an issue. I don't really remember any issues with young adults, but completely different standard. Our free time for young adults was like, you can do this. We're doing this and this and this, but go take a nap. I don't care what you do.
But no boys and girls cabins and no girls.
Yeah.
There was like those days.
But then, again, our middle school, we're taking them from station to station. Like, there might be a very little amount of choice and freedom. High school, you might have some more, but the younger you go, the more structure you need. I mean,
I would say those cabins, that's how we do free time. So my group of girls, we have free time, and we decide what we want to do. We can go to the pool, we can go to the basketball, we can go, but we had to stay as a cabin. You were never allowed to leave because I just don't know where you're going to go. And also, I don't know the people that work at this camp. I don't know anything. And I don't want my daughter hanging out with random men, so you get to stay with me, right? Like, it would never be like that. So we always just stayed together, and it built the unity of that group, that core group of girls. It really did.
And we would also do, just as an aside, you have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you do that middle school or young adult? Or
We did it middle school. Yeah. No, but with young adult, it wasn't just free range. I mean, Zach is right. But we always had in our mind that people are coming with young adult that don't know anybody, and they're not part of the clique yet. And so to do free range where everyone go play, that one person that knows nobody is going to have a real hard time. If the young adults are selfish and they don't know how to include. So we would always say, like, there's a group of us going hiking at 2, and there's a group of us painting our nails or whatever at late at night doing here. But just provide some structure, or here's a
Ladies.
Yeah. Here's a breakout on prayer.
Just clarify.
But we would say we're having a breakout on prayer. We'd always do a breakout on something during free times that are optional, because the kids who are awkward, they need a place to go to feel a part of it. Because if you're coming and you're not a part of it, to give 4 hours of free time, even in young adult, all you're doing is solidifying that kid does not belong. No one's inviting him. No one's included him. And they'll try, but it's so hard. Some people are just so emotionally and socially weird. These kids are socially weird. And so...
Maybe this is a bonus 6 point. Chase after the one.
Yeah, we always wanted to have...
Like, the kid is the most awkward, who's most out, make sure that kid is loved.
The most.
Yeah.
That kid was going to be my best friend by the end of it. Yeah.
I mean, that's how I got married.
Yeah. I have one more thing I was going to say.
Back on the back of what she was talking about was with the groups. One of the things I know that was really cool for us, especially with younger kids, but like creating competition. She would have a cabin. They would all have a color. They would have a team name or something, and then we'd have group games the whole weekend and that kind of thing. Scavenger hunts. I mean, yeah. And we did that with young adults too. We had, where you break off in the groups and you do stuff to create competition. It gets buy-in, right? Everyone's part of a team now, and everyone wants to see, the end results, have really great prizes. Not lame things, but have something that if you win, you're gonna get this, and to be really excited about it. So.
The cost is always the issue now, right, though? Like, no one comes because it costs money. And I would just say, when we first started our church that we're at right now, they just send every kid to camp. They're like, you need a free spot? Here you go. And I just really disagreed with that, because I think everyone needs to have buy-in. I think everyone needs to have some kind of effort. Like, you should make some effort. I'm all for paying for everybody, but make some kind of effort. And so we still say to anyone, like, if you want to go and you can't afford it, we will provide a fundraiser. I always said that. I will provide a fundraiser. And every fundraiser I do or that we did, I was always in charge of scheduling. It was one that if a kid wanted to earn $100, he could, or if a lazy kid didn't want to work, they would earn $2. So we've sold beef jerky sticks. We've sold pounds of coffee. We've
donuts, Krispy Kremes.
We've done donuts. We've done where they can hire a kid to come work in their yard. And then you have, if you have
slave labor.
10 kids that want to work, and you say to the church, a kid will come over and rake your leaves. You just send it out to the kids. Who wants the job? And Zach will go with them. Yeah. We'll go with you. I will sell this coffee with you. I will sell this with you, but you have to work with me. And there would always be a couple kids that would work their butts off. And some would even pay for their friend to go. And then those kids, I would sometimes even say, you just have to raise half. You have to do something, because buy-in is huge. If a child has worked to get there, it'll mean so much more to them, right? But also, I'm trying to train that in them. Like, a man who does not work does not eat. And so for us to always just to be giving everything to everybody, I think kids need buy-in. I think parents need buy-in. And so no obstacle of cash. So I did it with them, and it became discipleship. If you're raking leaves with a kid, you know them so well before you get to camp. If you're selling donuts, you know that kid. So, Easton and I probably sold a number of stupid things. But just know that's a huge deal. But before the camp comes, if camp's in January, February, start thinking, what's a really big year-long fundraiser we could do to take the whole camp base down? So like when we were at this church, our camps were always $110. Well, every other camp here was $145. And everyone would be like, why are your camps so cheap? It's because we would do a fundraiser, sell a shirt in February, raise and take that bulk of money, and just know when camp comes, I'm buying it down for everybody. And so if you could just get always planned out, because a $65 camp will bring twice as many people as $165, right? And then every time a kid registers, it says to the parent, would you like to sponsor another child to go to camp? Like I always offer the adults at church, whenever you announce your camp, if you don't have a kid in middle school, but if you want to sponsor a child to go, the link is there too. Like, you just have to kind of think it, because people want to support you, they just don't know how, right? And I never gave anybody that full scholarship, so then I have these scholarships, and now I give a half scholarship. Pray over it. And then always, we would find kids that they would never ask for a scholarship, but we would go to them and say, hey, you know what, someone gave us a scholarship, we'd love to pay half of your trip if you want to go. So money's huge. You have to be the one to think ahead to help that, buy that down for them. Does that make sense? And so fundraisers. I hate
There's
them.
all kinds of obstacles,
But give
right?
them a pack of beef jerky and say, go sell these to people. And people will buy beef jerkies. They will, because they're already going to buy it anyway. So why not buy it and give the kids
They're
back, right?
delicious.
So
That's all I have. You guys have any questions, comments, any additional thoughts? Any crazy things you guys have done? Yeah.
Do you guys have, because we're kind of looking into this at our church, beginning some camps and things like that. And do you guys have an outline of a weekend?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have that stuff? I would be the most interested in young adults.
Yeah,
scenario,
I got like schedules of camps we've done. I can
Well,
just tell you.
everyone will
Fantastic.
start with worship Bible study Friday night.
But I can just give you a real good
Saturday
outline
morning.
of how much content we had versus free time. I'll send you like 4 or 5.
It was always nighttime
Um,
Bible study, morning
yeah.
Bible study,
Yeah.
nighttime Bible study, morning Bible study.
Let me,
with breakouts in the middle.
Yeah.
We always
Let me
did
get your
it.
email afterwards.
But we
I'll
do a
send it to you.
guy-girl breakout or a girl-boy breakout for middle school, high school.
Mm-hmm.
Always do girl-boy breakouts, because that's where you're going to talk to the girls about their emotions, about sexual purity, about their friendship groups, about their insecurities, their anxiety. And then that's where, Zach, every chance he could, he talked to these boys about having pure minds. We did young adults. We had 100 young adults when we left here. We broke off into camps.
We also had a lot of married couples coming, so we did one
Yeah.
for married couples. I mean, it was
Yeah.
it was
But
pretty
we
legit.
have
Got
10
3.
cabins with 10 boys. And what we learned, or 5 cabins with 10 boys, what we learned in the young adults, even in a really healthy church, 9 out of 10 young men are struggling in porn, and 8 out of the 10 had found it in their parents' home. So they had been looking at porn for years. And so when you break off, hit those issues. Let's not stray. The world's going to talk about it. So you never want to do that stuff in a guy-girl setting, because that's not appropriate. But to get those boys to talk, they will just be face down in prayer to be out of it. Like, those kids want out. So morning Bible study, nighttime Bible study, and then breakouts in the middle. And then as much fun as you can fill in every gap.
Yeah, I'll get you a young adult one. Let me get your email.
Do you guys have the expectations?
Yeah.
Like a one sheet of that, that would be helpful.
Yeah, I'll get you. I have your email. I'll email that. I'm gonna write stuff down.
Yeah.
With the whole, a lot of us, we're all Christians and we all love the Lord, but I guarantee that some of us let our kids watch PG-13 movies, and some of us let our kids watch D movies, right? And some of us, our kids only listen to Christian music, and some of us, our kids can listen to clean secular. So there's all these waves of standards between all parents, and so I never wanted a parent to be upset. I never wanted to ever cross a line of a parent, because if a parent wants to have a high standard for their child, because maybe they know their child's weaknesses, I'm not going to bring that standard down. So when Zach said we listen to secular music, I don't really know that I wanted that in the middle school realm, because if parents weren't letting their kids listen to secular music, I'm not bringing in even the YMCA, because I'm not going to have that parent upset. And so movie choices.
Nacho Libre? I don't know.
No, but they knew what they were coming to. We advertised it as such.
Okay, fair enough.
If you tell parents, but we never ever were like, well, this is what, we've had people say to us, like, oh, they learn more than that in public school. And I'd be like, I don't care. Like,
Yeah, that's a pretty low bar now.
but just stuff like that. That was back 15 years ago, so it wasn't a very low bar as then, but I feel like. But never ever let a child learn something or cross that line with you. Like, we just are not going to do anything. And so Zach and I would get in big fights about that, because in Raised he was allowed to watch certain things, and then I get saved and I want none of it. And so we were like, for other people's kids, Absolutely not. So I just encourage you guys, like when you're driving up to camp and the kids are like, can we listen to this cool new song? Even though it's clean, you don't say, is it clean? It's no, because I don't know that mama of the other little girl is going to let her listen to it, and I'm going to respect every parent. And the reason is because I want that kid to come back. Now, is that parent's standard maybe crazy because it's cultish? I don't care. I want that child to come. So I'm not going to kick this child out of my youth group because I want to listen to secular music or I want to let the kids wear a certain thing. If parents aren't comfortable with bikinis, then fine. We'll wear one pieces at this pool party. I'm fine with that. So bring the standard to where you think it's going to make all the parents comfortable without making it legalism and without making it
Standards
crazy.
aren't legalistic. You guys know that, right?
Yeah.
Legalism
Well,
is
I
when
don't
you
want them to
add
think it's me.
something to the scripture doesn't say, but when you're setting a standard for a group, you're there as over them, protecting them. And so you can have standards, for example, even as a staff on a church that don't exist or maybe aren't applicable to all believers because your standard is a standard. It's not, you have to do this in order to be saved. Legalism is you need to do these things in order to be saved. So that you got to clarify those
parents
things.
will tell you, like, well, I think it's legalistic that you won't let my daughter wear this. And I'm like, not everyone's comfortable with that. So in order to love everybody, I'm just going to ask that we just show up in one pieces or put a t-shirt on. Because some mamas aren't happy. And so I'm just trying to I want the parents to send their kids. And that's all that matters to me. So I'm not going to go one way or the other. I'm just going to make sure I never teach a child something.
Yeah, back there.
So when you guys do young adult trips, how do you guys handle the young adults that misbehave? Like, like with kids, it's a little easier because you have parents pick them up or you can take them back home. But the younger adults are older, like.
Give an example of misbehaving as a young
Like,
adult.
maybe you catch them having sex with each other. Or,
Oh.
Yeah, like if you guys went on a trip and had.
Well,
kids,
man.
Younger adults that were like 17,
Okay, well,
20,
we have really clear policies.
Yeah.
Boys and girls are separate, right?
Cool.
But we've had some kids do a few things, and they just need to go. But you're coming to a Christian camp,
Yeah.
and the scriptures are really clear that we're to obey. Like, we're not to be those people. Now, I get if they accidentally cuss, or if someone smokes and he's walking up into the hills to have a cigarette. Like, whatever, you try. I don't care. But stuff like that, having sex, that's stumbling others. That's not loving others. You can go.
I'm asking if you guys have experience with something like that where you guys had how would you handle that? We don't have a young adult yet, right? Because we're just small, right? Yeah, come on. And so we're trying to figure out how do you handle the younger adults that are a little older that are, how do you send them home? So it's like if they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think. Well, I was gonna say one of the things that we realize, if you give them a standard and you tell them the expectation, when they don't meet the standard, it's really easy to say, hey, we gave you the standard. We'd love for you to be a part of this, but you just can't be. So you're gonna have to go. So whether they're driving themselves and they go, or you have a leader drive them home, but when you give somebody a standard, God doesn't give us standards and then say, well, never mind, I didn't mean it. Now there's grace, maybe if it was a mistake or whatever, but we've had a kid, I think, get high once, and we were like, he's got to go. So I just told him, like, one of the grown men said, you got to go. Sorry, buddy, like, we're not smoking pot at camp. We got to go. And so I think it's really easy, once you've given the standard, to look that kid in the eye and say, hey, bud, we talked about this. You agreed to it. You're going to have to go.
Have you guys ever had anyone like kind of fight back with that?
We've had middle
Golly.
schoolers want to fight back. And
Yeah, middle schoolers,
and
but
high
they're a lot easier to subject.
honestly, we just remain in authority. We've always gained control. We don't have anybody fighting us like that. Yeah, but we bring enough leaders. That would be, it's one leader, even in young adult realm, you find those mature young adults, you separate them out into cabins, two leaders to a cabin, you have an authority structure, if there's authority. But if there's not authority, it's a free for all. So, but I would just say, if they cross the standard, they cross the line. It's just not acceptable. I'm keeping the other kids safe. And next year when they come, if they come back, they'll know to keep your standard. Okay?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So, you say kid, it's young adult, right? They're adults, so I'm
Right.
just kind of confused on what the age range
Well,
is.
sometimes 18-year-olds are still like little children.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
Yeah,
because
18 to 25 is young
18 to
adults for
30
us.
is what we end up.
Yeah, 18 to 30. Yeah.
18 to 30 is a hard number because a 30-year-old hanging with 18-year-olds, you're going to have that.
Yeah.
It's going to end up being a 27 to 29-year-old young adult group at some point. But if you keep it younger, you'll keep it younger. So you just have to decide what age range you're hitting.
Yeah.
Ours was 18 to 25 was our focus. We let those olders kind of trickle in, but we didn't pursue the olders because they
Okay.
will soon become the ones that are kind of the bulk of
Yeah,
it.
plus they need to be in church anyways, so.
Do you guys do any kind of night games, and if so, how do you maintain standards?
A lot harder for sure. The ones we did were, if we did a night thing, it was like a scavenger hunt type of thing, so you're with the group the whole time. But yeah, never.
It's just like free time. Leaders, 2 leaders with a group of 6 kids, and they're gonna all stick together all night to do something fun. But I was always in charge of my 6 girls. I never let them out of my sight. There was never a time where I wasn't responsible to know exactly where they were.
Yeah. All right. We're good. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's perfect.